Good day, dear ladies and gentlemen. Our today's interview will be about Azerbaijani Armenian conflict. We are a youth project, and our goal is to bring clarity to the world about the situation. And the guest of our interview will be Siyavush Bahar. Can you say, please, what do you think about the real origins of Azerbaijani Armenian conflict?
Yeah, of course, it is doubtless that the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia is artificial, because there is a well-known principle that nobody wants a stronger neighbor, and the main real reasons of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan is prevent the stable development in Caucasus region, and other reasons which is produced by Russia and Russia's policy, like during Soviet rule and during Tsarist Russia and also modern world. First of all, I think there is no historical deep roots in this conflict, because the Armenians don't have their states, and unfortunately they claim that we are historical nation, and we had a state like Greater Armenia. We have an emperor, Tigran II. Of course, the main sources of ancient world prove that the claims of Armenians are nonsense, and this conflict were established in this region in order to govern these nations. Not only Armenians in the region, not only the Azerbaijanis, also the other minorities like Lezgins, Talishs, Udins, and others. First of all, I think in order to resolve this problem, in order to resolve this conflict in this region, and in order to accomplish the stable development and peace in this region, we must investigate the deep roots of this conflict from ancient history to our modern world.
So, as you know, the Gulistan and Turkmenchai treaties were signed in 1813 and 1828 between Russian Empire and Iran, respectively. And what do you think was the Russian Empire's interest in resettling masses of Armenians on the territories where the ethnic majority was Azerbaijani?
As we know, the treaties of Gulistan and Turkmenchai were against, they violate the basic principle of self-determination of people. The parties of these treaties were Russian Empire and Qajars, but unfortunately the territories of Azerbaijan were divided into two parts, northern Azerbaijan and southern Azerbaijan, and of course these treaties also violates the principle of legality, the principle of justice, let me say. And according to the 15th provision of the second treaty, Turkmenchai Treaty, Armenians were settled in our territories, especially in the special regions of northern Azerbaijan, like Yerevan, Nakhchivan, Bortsalı, Karabakh, and other territories, which these regions have special, very good well conditions. Of course, I think the settlement of Armenians in Caucasus region has not only political or historical effect, also the psychological effect. Let's imagine that you are, let me say, you are a villager, like for example in Karabakh. You feel that you have, let me say, you have a land, for example, in order to some economic or other activities, and your land were given to an Armenian, and this land was yours. Your father, your grandfather, and your grandfathers worked here, and you lost your land. It's absolutely, let me say, it's absolutely wrong.
Humiliating, yes.
Humiliate the main civil rights, you mean. And then for the first 6 years of the settlement of Armenians to these territories, they had right not to give or not to pay taxes and other payments. Of course, this is the violation of the main principle of equality.
What do you think? Maybe it was done by the reason to diminish Azerbaijani population in these territories. What do you think about it?
Of course, let's imagine that if the Russian governors in the Caucasus, if they gave the same conditions and the same rights to Azerbaijanis and Armenians, I think if these conditions happened, we don't have any conflict today.
The situation in Azerbaijan in 1905 and 1906 years. What was the driving force?
Of course, the driving force is the Russian governors, and of course the leadership of Russian Empire, because in the beginning of 1905, the new revolution happened in Russia. In history, it's called Bloody Sunday or Bloody January, let me say. And this revolution was the main effect not only in Caucasus but also the other regions, in the other colonies of Russian Empire, like Ukraine, Central Asia, let me say Finland, and other territories. People think that why people, or let me say, why some groups in Russian Empire wants to revolt, especially there's some groups like Marxists in this period, socialist revolutionaries, and other groups. Why they want the constitution, why they want to acquire the Dumas. Duma is the parliament of Russia. This is the historical and political term, you mean. And after that, the Russian government, or let me say Russian representatives in Caucasus, they prepared a project, a plan. This plan was directly prepared by Nakashidze in order to create a new conflict zone in Caucasus, especially Armenia. Most of the Armenians were Christians, and most of Azerbaijanis were Muslim. Religious difference.
You say that it was done just only by the religion aims, or maybe it was also done due to the fruitful territory, because Azerbaijan has a fruitful territory, and also it's a border between Europe and Asia. Maybe this was the reason. What do you think about it?
Of course, religion is one of the reasons in the situation in the beginning of 20th century, of course, Also, there's other reasons. For example, in this period, the Russian officials in the Caucasus played two roles. The first role, they said to the Armenians, the Muslims want to kill you. This is the first role. And the second role, they said to the Muslims that Armenians want to kill you. Of course, for example, in the Caucasus in 1905 and 1906, most of Muslims didn't have, let me say, their army, or let me say, didn't have their special devices. But Armenians were supported from the Western Europe, like the committees of Kansak and committees of Dashnak committees, and they supported Armenians. And also, in some places, Armenians were also supported by Russian officials. For example, in the Karabakh, in Shusha, they were supported by Kalashapov. Armenians gave some amount of money to the head of Russian forces in Karabakh, Kalashapov. For example, in Nakhchivan, the head of Russian army is Enkel. Armenians also gave some amount of money. This is corruption. But in this period, the main supporters of Azerbaijanis were our millionaires like Hazin Tagiev, and our, let me say, and our writers, our poets, and our representatives in state bodies, for example, Fatel Khan Khoyski, Zalal Mehmet Gulzadeh, and others, Subashov, and others.
Could you bring clarity about 1918 and 1920?
Yeah, I think it's the new stage in this conflict, because let's imagine before 1918, both Azerbaijanis and Armenians had only, let me say, some villages, or they represented in state bodies, only this. But after the dissolution of Russian Empire and Transcaucasian Council, three republics were established in this region, and two of them were the People's Republic of Azerbaijan and Armenian Democratic Republic. We, unfortunately, we gave our old city Yerevan to Armenians in order to resolve this conflict, but Armenians, let me say, didn't satisfy only the Yerevan and the other territories around Yerevan.
You are talking about Zengezur?
You are right, of course. And they started to claim other territories like Nakhchivan, Derelayaz, Karabakh, and other regions. In this situation, when the independent republics were established in this region, history came across some bloody wars, like wars between Armenians and Azerbaijanis, and, for example, the Caucasian Islamic Army, and it's called in Russian Bakinsky Sovnarkom. This is the Commissariat of People's Soviets of Baku. And after the abolishment of commissars of the Soviet of People's Commissars in Baku, the main enemies were not enemy, but I think the term enemy is not more useful in this situation, because there is another threat in this region. This is Soviet Russia. Soviet Russia was the main threat, not only to Azerbaijan, but also all the republics in Caucasus.
What do you think about the second deportation of Azerbaijani population during the years 1948 and 1953?
Yeah, especially after the Second World War, the new project was established by Soviet leadership. First of all, they wanted to settle the Armenians which lived in Europe and other countries, especially they were suffered from the Second World War. They decided that Armenians were obliged to be settled in the Armenian Soviet Socialistic Republic, and that's why the population of Armenian Republic increased, and they decided that Azerbaijanis must be deported from the Western Azerbaijan, or let me say the Armenian Soviet Socialistic Republic, to the region of Azerbaijan SSR, between the region Chur and Araz rivers. But the climate of these two regions, the Chur-Araz region and the Western Azerbaijan, the climate are quite different, and that's why in the first years of deportation, half of Azerbaijanis which were deported from Armenian SSR, they died due to serious climate conditions. And the deportation violate the principle of the deportation violate the voluntary principle, because for example everyone has right, let me say, everyone has right to settle in a place and to acquire and to exercise their civil rights related to the place of habitual residence. And the let me say deportation of Azerbaijanis by force from Armenia to Chur-Araz region, this violates one of the main civil rights.
So what can you say about the 1988 and 1991 deportation?
If I understood you right, it was done by disinforming people, yeah?
Yes, it was trying to claim that this is voluntary choice, but it was not. But some of them, of course, understood that this was not, and they were deported by force.
The concept of deportation is as the same as the other deportations, because in the beginning of 20th century, also in 1918 and also in 1988, in these deportations, Armenians say they didn't want to leave Muslims together. They don't want. Of course, it doesn't mean that, for example, if we don't want to leave someone together, we deportate them from these territories. It doesn't mean, of course. Of course, as the other deportations, also in this deportation, the main criminal is the Soviet leadership. Why? Because in the beginning of 20th century, the massacres and the, let me say, war between Armenians and Azerbaijanis was prepared by Russian leadership, and also in this case the main source of artificial conflict, also created by Soviet leadership. Soviet leadership was the other form of Russian interests. They want, for example, the main principle about these situations, the main principle was created in ancient Rome: separate power and govern them.
Mm-hmm.
And they, at the end of 20th century, especially the events that resulted the dissolution of Soviet Union, the Soviet leadership wanted to keep the Union as an entire state, and they think that only choice to keep the Soviet Union of Soviet Socialistic Republics is to create new artificial conflicts, or new conflicts, or to create new historical states in these conflicts. After the dissolution of Soviet Union, there are many conflicts. We have many conflicts in the post-Soviet eras. For example, territorial conflicts between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and other territorial conflict between Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, conflict among Georgia, South Ossetia and Abkhazia, conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and other conflicts. All the conflicts were artificial, it's doubtless, and I think everybody can understand why these conflicts are artificial. The main principle is the separate of powers, and then in the beginning of 20th century, the Soviet leadership played two roles. The first role, they said to Armenians that Azerbaijanis were your enemy. Azerbaijanis wants to invade, to occupy your territories, and also they played their second role. They said to the governors of, not governors, the Azerbaijani people, that Armenians occupied your territories. And this is the main roots in the last years of Soviet Union. Most of people in Azerbaijan were the member of the Communist Party of Soviet Union. Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the activities of this party were based on the principles of communism, Marxism and Leninism. And one of the main statement according to communism is the equality of people. If Azerbaijanis and Armenians were equal, why they create new conflict in this region? And this means the implementation of equality of people's rights was nonsense.
Can we say that Armenians were already having this hatred towards Azerbaijanis before the Russian empires and Soviet Union's role in it, because of their hatred to Ottoman Empire, and then Soviet Union and Russian Empire trying to use it and trying to make it even worse by putting both nations against each other for their segregation law? Do you think this way, or do you think the hatred of Dashnaks, etc., was not so strong?
During the rule of Tsarist Russia, They believed in the religious issues because both Russians and Armenians were Christians. When the Soviet Union established, their beliefs decreased because there was no religion in the Soviet Union at the state level, because to believe in religions is against the communist theory. But after the death of Stalin, because Stalin was a dictator and Stalin governed the USSR with strict rules, after the death of Stalin, the political, let me say, the political life in the Soviet Union was getting, let me say, more softly, let me say. And for example, after the death of Stalin, the Soviet government allowed some religions, and the beliefs of Armenians increased after these events in the Caucasus. But Armenians, I think Armenians analyzed the situation very well, not only in the 20th century, from the moment when they were settled in these territories, because they analyzed the economic situation in the Soviet Union. Soviet economy will be destroyed because some rules in this country is against the logic, because the collectivization of economy and other rules, and these rules were also against the Marxist theory. They let me say, they didn't understand themselves that what we do, what kind of economy we create. And Armenians analyzed the situation, and they were sure that on a one day Soviet Union was dissolved. And that's why they prepared, you mean the Armenian nationality, Armenian ideology, you are an Armenian is the best in the world, and this ideology looks like the Nazi ideology and also the other nationalist movements in the world.
What was the administrative level of MKAO from 1923 till 1991?
Of course, I think in order to resolve this conflict in 21st century, we also should investigate the administrative legal status of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, because first of all, at the state level, for the first time, Karabakh was divided into two parts, Nagorno part and lowland part. Lowland part was also called as Aran Karabakh, but the Nagorno part of the Karabakh got internal independence. It's autonomous. Of course, during the Soviet rule, there were two autonomous regions, two autonomous states in the Azerbaijan SSR. One of them is Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic and Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. Of course, the authorities of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast and its internal independence was not higher than the Nakhchivan's status, because Nakhchivan was republic, but the Karabakh is also autonomous oblast. But the division of Karabakh into two parts at the state level had also psychological effect. Let's imagine you are a Soviet officer and you live in Karabakh, for example. Where do you want to work? For example, in Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, or for example in Fizuli region, in Beylegan district or other regions. Of course in Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, because the governors of the leaders of Azerbaijan during Soviet rule, they took more care of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. Also, Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast had internal independence. But it doesn't mean that the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast was independent, had independent status. It's unfortunate. It's absolutely wrong, because some historians claim that there is only one source related to the status of Karabakh. This is the decree on the establishment of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, which was adopted in 1923. This is wrong, because the main sources is the Constitution of USSR, Constitution of the Soviet Socialistic Republic of Azerbaijan, and the law of Azerbaijan SSR on the status of the Nagorno-Karabakh, which was adopted by the Parliament of Azerbaijan in 1981. According to this law, first provision of this law, Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast is not independent, and the main activities of Nagorno-Karabakh Oblast must be accordance with the Constitution of USSR, Constitution of Azerbaijan SSR, and other normative legislative acts. This is the main rules. For example, some Armenian lawyers and historians claim that after the dissolution of, after the dissolution of USSR, Azerbaijan, the republics in the USSR, they were the members of the federation, and Azerbaijan left this federation. This means that Karabakh get another right to left Azerbaijan. This is absolutely wrong, because the main rules of countries, the main rules, legislative acts of the countries, especially after became independent from the USSR, they check their rules, and the provisions related to communist ideology and other ones were abolished, were terminated, or some amendments, additional changes, to the legislative acts. We come across these facts. And it doesn't mean that Azerbaijan left after the membership of federation in the USSR. This means that Karabakh acquired another specific right. This is wrong. According to the 68th provision of law of Azerbaijan SSR on the status of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, the main buildings, the main committees, state bodies in the Nagorno-Karabakh, they must raise the flag of Azerbaijan SSR. It had not only administrative but also psychological effect. Let's imagine you are autonomous oblast, and your activities, you can exercise your activities under the flag of our republic. And the status of Nagorno-Karabakh was terminated, was abolished by the Parliament of Azerbaijan on November 1991. The main reason is that the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast violate the constitution, normative legal acts, and they declared their independence, that we are independent republic. And you know, before the dissolution of Soviet Union in 1989, parliaments of Armenian SSR and the main council of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast decided that the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast left the Azerbaijan SSR and joined to the Armenian. This is the violation of the constitution of USSR and the violation of the principle of integrity, territorial integrity of states, according to international legal norms.
Was it about the fact that many Azerbaijani people had Turkish origins, and all during the war, it was not the war, but the collisions of USSR and Turkish Republic? Was it connected to them or not?
Please repeat your question.
I'm talking that many Azerbaijani people have Turkish origins. Was it connected to the problem? Maybe it was the reason, the very origin of the conflict? What can it be?
I think this topic must be discussed because the Armenians called us not Azerbaijani, they called us Turks. And for example, during the Second Karabakh War, they declared to the world that Turks killed us, Turks killed us.
Ottoman Empire,
Yeah. Also the Armenian genocide. Of course, according to the publications of McCarthy is one of the famous historians in the United States. He proved that the massacre, the Armenian genocide, was nonsense.
Fake.
Of course.
Yes. Actually, I heard that the Armenian people, like, they teach their kids hatred from the day they're born. They say the Turks killed us, and they take kids to the they show a grave of their ancestors, and they would show a child that this is a grave, and the Turks killed us. Ottoman Empire, like, Turks killed us. So we have to take a revenge on Turks, all Turks. It doesn't matter, like Ottoman Empire Turks or Tatars, it doesn't matter. They have this hatred towards all kind of Turks. And it is not a surprise that organizations like Dashnaks, etc. existed back in the day. And I believe the Soviet Union and Tsarist Russia, it was a benefit for them, as you said before, to segregate nations and to make them more separated. So they tried to make this conflict even stronger, to make us more segregated.
Before the dissolution of Soviet Union, Armenian historian or Armenian history teachers, let me say, in the schools of Azerbaijan SSR, they said to the students that you are sons and daughters of Atropat, and Atropat, according to history, Atropat was the head of Atropatena, the head of Azerbaijan, and the term Atropatena was the first form of the word Azerbaijan. This showed us that regardless of country, Tsarist Russia or Russian Empire or Soviet Union or independent Armenia, they never want to come together, and they, for example, they refused cooperation in this region in order to acquire peace and stable development. the region.
What many viewers are interested in, can you please clarify? And what many viewers are interested in is the First and Second Karabakh War. Could you please bring clarity about that?
Of course, there are several differences between First and Second Karabakh War. We can get enough exact information in websites or our history books, but I think the main difference in this conflict is the change of sides, I think, because in the First Karabakh War, one of the sides was weak, Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijan which didn't have organized army, Azerbaijan, and but during the Second Karabakh War, we proved that we are strong, we are powerful side, and we can liberate our territories from occupation. For example, the First Karabakh War. Let's compare two Karabakh wars. The First Karabakh War continued more than 2 years. Some sources claim that more than 4 or 5 or 6 years, but the Second Karabakh War continued within 44 days. This is the main issue, this is the main difference between them. And also the other countries understand that which side is right, which side is wrong in this conflict, because Armenians in Armenia don't have enough, or let me say, good conditions to live.
I have a question regarding this. What do you think? The Second Karabakh War was inevitable, or maybe we could get back our regions, our occupied territory without blood, without war? What do you think?
My answer to this question is very exact. This conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia can be solved only and only by Armenia and Azerbaijan. Not Russia, not Turkey, not Georgia, not other states, not Minsk group. Only and only the sides of this conflict can resolve this problem.
What do you think about the public opinion to provide the background based on the former Azerbaijani Armenian conflict and to enhance understanding and peace and also reconciliation?
We have more practice related to question during Tsarist Russia and Soviet rule in the Caucasus. We lived with Armenians in neighbor relations. Actually, to be honest, it's also interesting for me. Can we live with Armenians together, or can we live Armenians in peaceful neighborhood conditions? I think, first of all, in order to finish this conflict, the peace treaty must be concluded between parties, first of all, because the trilateral declarations were not the exact source in order to resolve this problem. Both we and Armenians need an exact peace treaty. After concluding peace treaty, we can discuss about our neighborhood relations. For example, if according to peace treaty, Armenians recognize the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, the recognizing the territorial integrity of our republic means they abolished their claims related to Artsakh, Karabakh Republic, or Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, and others like this. I think it's interesting topic, and maybe it's another interview topic.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you very
time.
much. Thank you for the time you spent today.
Yes, it was really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time that you spent today on our questions and our interview. We are glad that you accepted our invitation and gave the interview.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. It's a great pleasure for me. Thanks. It's a great pleasure, and thanks for your attention. Thanks for this interview, and we hope that the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, inshallah, must be resolved in order to acquire peace and stable improvement in the region.
Thank you.
Thank you.